This week, Emma and I were talking about AI, what it's genuinely brilliant at, where it starts to fall short, and we explored why, in a world increasingly powered by algorithms, deep human insight, intuition, and emotional understanding really matter more than ever. So, Emma, you've worked in market research and consumer insight for over 30 years now, which is amazing. And obviously, you've seen a lot of changes in the industry over your career. And as we know, AI is not just the new buzzword anymore. It's, everyone's using it. And I just wondered what your thoughts on it are.
Well, I think it is an extraordinary tool and it's, very exciting for everyone who uses it. I think the speed, the fact that it's scalable, the fact that it's increasingly capable of producing quite polished outputs is really exciting. And I think it can really help the industry. It's really good at spotting patterns in massive data sets that would take us days and days to go through. It speeds up our workflows in different ways by helping us with little ambient tasks. And it's pretty good at generating first drafts of things, such as a discussion guide or something like that. But I don't think at the moment it would be able to write one like we can. It's also pretty good at all the sort of basic insight tasks, and it does them relatively well, although sometimes you can have to jostle with it a bit.
Yeah.
And it can come up with some surface level insights quite effectively. So I don't see it completely as the enemy. And I think it's very exciting for the industry. And I think the industry is evolving really quickly to adapt to this new change. So at the moment, that's kind of where I'm at on it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's been an incredible tool. It's scary how fast it's kind of come in and is helping us. But I think that it's quite high level kind of output that we're getting from it at the moment. So it's definitely speeding up the kind of more mundane tasks that we have to do. And it's also really good as a starter for 10, if you're thinking about writing a piece, discussion guide or just getting the ball rolling, or maybe even sense checking if what you've written is good. But it's
Yeah.
it is a very good tool, but like you say, it definitely does have its kind of ceiling, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think it really excels on the things that it knows and that are known. And but when it comes to a real insight, the kind that really changes strategy, unlocks a new market, or reveals hidden motivations that we didn't even know were there in the consumer, or the things that people don't say, which we find incredible insight from, and we intuitively know that there are things where they're not saying. AI can't do that. It doesn't understand the unconscious mind. It's not very good with things that are quite messy in terms of thought processes or things that are very emotional and interpreting those emotions and understanding what they mean. It can understand culture to a point, but again, cultural things are really key to driving great insight. And things that kind of feel intuitively right or wrong, it can't really define what they are. So that's kind of where it hits its ceiling. And the thing that I worry about is that the overuse of it at this stage is going to cause this sort of erosion of imagination within the insight industry. We have to use a certain level of our own kind of creative thought processes in order to define an insight and to, have the right inputs to a strategy. We need to be really curious. We don't need to just take what's in front of us and accept that that's okay. And we need a really strong interpretive skill that's about those human skills that we have, understanding human beings. So I think it does expose its flaws in that way when you're getting into that kind of insight generation.
Yeah. And are there any kinds of projects that you would steer clear using AI? Because I know there are so many platforms now popping up all over the place that offer, let's say, AI moderators, or are there any kind of insights that you think it really shouldn't be applied.
Anything at the moment that involves any sort of interpretation of emotion, or anything that kind of understands the unconscious mind, which we do a lot in our business, or understanding the metaphors that drive people, or even deep motivations behind why they do the things they do. I don't think it can do that right now. It can answer basic questions about behavior and ask them things about why they do things, but it's all going to be very, very surface level. If you want to get that deep understanding and you want a competitive advantage against your competitors, you're going to have to go deeper to get the deeper insight. And I think, what we know through our business is that communication, 65% of it is nonverbal. How's an AI going to pick that up? How is it going to interpret language or body language or intonation or pauses in what people say or their facial expressions? AI misses that entirely. And that's where we get a lot of deep understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, going on the moderation journey myself recently, you do get to understand people's strength of feeling towards certain phrases that they're saying, or opinions that they're giving, when they've got kind of hesitation in their voice, or perhaps even sarcasm, which we know as Brits we definitely use a lot of sarcasm. And I don't think that AI is at the point where it would be able to pick that up and discern the difference between something that was truthful and sarcasm, essentially.
There are times when people don't really know what they're answering, or they don't know the answer to the question we're giving. I don't think AI can pick that up.
No.
Unless it's really obvious that they don't know or they're lying. But generally, I think we know if someone's uncomfortable with a question or they're contradicting themselves, we can kind of work through that.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the thing. We often see people giving an answer because they feel that they have to, and you wonder whether or not an AI moderator would be able to tell the difference between whether or not they really are truthful with what they're saying. Whereas I think, particularly with the amount of experience you have, you can read most people like a book, and it's such an important skill to have.
Well, it's those little things that they give away, and it may be through their body language, or it may be by little phrases they say, or even the way they've answered a question. There's more there, and you can dive into that and you find the most amazing information. I don't think that an AI would know how to do that, or would be able to pick up on those subtle human cues to be able to do it. So
yeah, it's like following the breadcrumb trail, or hunches, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing about intuition. Like, as humans, we have intuition about one another. An AI can only really follow the patterns that it's been trained on, but we can follow hunches. We get gut feelings about things. Even when you write an insight around something, you have a gut feeling about whether that insight's really good or really bad, but AI can't do that. It can write an insight and it can do a relatively good job, but it's not going to know which ones are going to be the ones that resonate with humans and basically give you a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So all the methods that we use in our business are built on those skills of understanding humans very, very deeply, and often following a route that wasn't explicitly offered. You think about the amount of interviews we've done where people start telling us things that they hadn't really ever thought about, or they didn't want to tell anybody, but they kind of blurt it out because we get into conversations that are so deep and kind of meaningful to them. But they can't believe they're saying the things they're saying because we know how to get it out of them.
Yeah, it does end up like a therapy session, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are your thoughts about AI's understanding of meaning and symbolism when we're doing interviews?
I think it can identify that there's meaning in something, and I think it can identify symbols, and it does have some understanding of those things, but it can't really interpret its significance. And it doesn't understand the sort of emotional weight that it might carry for somebody. And I think only a human can see certain patterns, especially when you're talking about something that's deeply personal to somebody. Like, it could be something like they could be a patient with a certain condition, and they really do have a very particular kind of psychology around that condition and how they deal with it. and it's the emotional or the unconscious or the sort of truths behind how they deal with that condition. AI wouldn't have the sensitivity or the understanding to kind of synthesize that, because it hasn't got the human connection or even the lived experience to kind of understand what it means. And I think, we have a lot of proprietary techniques that we use that really understand symbolism, meaning, the different layers of that meaning as well. That AI, I don't think we could ever even build an AI that would be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, and I think the other thing is that as humans, we think in stories. Storytelling is the currency that we have for one another and how we kind of influence each other and create understanding amongst us. AI doesn't think like that. It thinks in data. It can't generate a story related piece of content that's going to influence someone. When we speak to people, we ask them to speak in stories. That's how people can explain how they truly think and feel about something. AI doesn't think in stories. It doesn't think in that, and it can't produce that kind of content. And it can't really imagine what the elements of the story are. It can't sort of wonder about people's lives and work out what the heck's going on here. But we do it naturally, and it's kind of something that as a human you understand deeply. And our work and many of the tools that we use are around that sort of meaning in the narrative that they're telling you, and connecting all the dots and understanding what's going on in their minds and what's driving that meaning in their lives. And I don't think AI can do that. And I'm really quite unsure as to about whether it ever will be able to do that.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's sticking to data. It's not thinking like a human, essentially.
No. And the other thing, I have worked with I'm working with an AI agent at the moment that I'm trying to work with on insights and generating insights. And one thing that it really can't do at the moment, and I don't think it's going to be an easy thing for it to do in the future, is finding that incredible tension in an insight where you've got that feeling of, I need to overcome this, but I don't know how to overcome it in terms of the consumer's life, and understanding the needs that they have in a deep way that can generate a really amazing insight. All of the great insights in the world, such as things around Dyson or even Red Bull insights or the Cadbury's Gorilla ad, all those fantastic pieces of communication were built from human insight and how they understood deeply how people interacted and felt about their products and brands. And it's about sort of human intuition, that feel of like culture and where's culture at the moment, and making that creative leap into something that really resonates with the consumer. And I think our subconscious driven kind of methods are really designed to help with making those leaps, and AI can't at the moment do that.
So there are loads of companies, as we said, popping up all over the place, and lots of companies that are offering kind of large scale qualitative moderation using these AI driven moderators and platforms. And my thoughts are that, it almost feels a little bit like the number of people that they're able to reach, which obviously for some projects is fantastic, and it's what they need. But there are other dangers that, a qualitative interview turns more into quant, and they can't really gather as much data as we might be able to. What do you think about that kind of approach?
I think, again, as you said, it has its place, but I think there is this feeling that there's the new shiny tools that we can play with that are fast, and they, give you information. And I use that word really carefully, not insight, but they give you information really quickly. And so I can see the point of using them. But what our work really still requires is that curiosity as to finding out exactly what's going on. And I don't think an AI is tenacious enough to do that. We need to have empathy with our respondents in order to get them in the frame of mind to kind of connect with us as humans and really open up and talk to us. And I don't think an AI can do that. We're very good at being culturally aware, regardless of which global market we're working with, because we work across the globe so often that if you were to kind of scatter it out, and the moderators were moderating in different languages, they still don't understand the cultural context in which they're operating. They don't have that intuition, as we've said, about where do you go next with the conversation. It's probably quite a prescribed conversation. They probably will ask follow-up questions, but it won't be to the degree where we can see that breadcrumb trail and we go after it to find out what's going on. They don't have the interpretive skill to understand a human being and understand whether they're, being honest or whether they're, confused, or, and they don't have the ability to sort of play with what's not there. And then what I mean by that is that sometimes you can see that there's something going on, but you need to dig into it further to understand what's going on. But the consumer, it's almost like you don't know what you don't know, but you see signs of something and you need to go and unpick that and work out what they're thinking. I think if you really do want clear strategy, you want stronger innovation, you want to help yourself stand out from the rest and your competitors, and work on your strengths in the best way possible that's right for your brand, and produce more resonant communication, more meaningful experiences for people, and be more confident in your decision-making primarily, be careful with AI, I think, as it stands right now.
Yeah.
It's not something that can give you all of those things. Yeah. And I think it's tempting to start jumping into it, especially when you start looking at the cost differentials sometimes. I'm not saying that all of the tools are cheap, but some of them are. But be careful be conscious about what you're giving away, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that's it. It's a great partner, but it's using it and applying it when it's the right time. And if you've got a very important business question that you need answering, and you need that real depth and the experience of a very qualified agency that are going to be able to help you, find the insight from the data that you're pulling, then perhaps AI isn't the right choice. But if you're looking at something quick and fast, and the depth of insight isn't as important, then perhaps that's where it's a good tool. And like you say, it's great with the everyday kind of more mundane tasks that it can help you with.
I know we're not trying to bash AI here. What we're trying to do is make people realize what it can and can't do, and where it has a role and where it doesn't.
Yeah.
And my feeling is that we would like to embed it more in our business, and we do want to work with these tools. There's nothing stopping us, but we do it in a very advised way, and we do our homework on how good the tool is and what it can actually deliver, rather than jumping straight in and maybe getting our fingers burnt. So we're using it very advisedly and very carefully in all the aspects of our business.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like using AI advisedly, but using it as a tool. But what you still need is that human-led, subconscious-driven research. We need to know what's going on in the subconscious, but it makes it even more valuable now that you've got this world of AI, because it highlights the difference between things like data and meaning. AI's data, we're meaning. It will give you answers, but where do you get the insight from? You cannot generate insight through AI right now. It will give you the patterns in the data, but it's not going to give you the stories behind them. And it's going to tell you what people say, but it's not going to tell you what people feel. So I feel that our techniques don't just gather information, and that's a really important distinction. They reveal the emotional, the symbolic, the unconscious drivers that shape how real behavior happens. And that's simply something that AI can't do at the moment.